Pushta was home to about 35,000 families. In 2004, over an operation of 3 months that involved police and representatives of the army, Pushta was destroyed. Inclusion, exclusion, inequality, equity, development, progress. Do any of these terms really get to actually how does the bulldozer get the order to go? The story of an eviction is also the story of how we imagine poor people in our own cities.
This is a fairly unique experiment in trying to evolve a new way of looking at problem solving, especially in urban and settlement-related spaces.
You are going to, in a sense, be ambassadors for arguing for the importance and the absolute essential urgency of looking at the question of urban development and urban development planning.
When we think about bringing down those national stories of development to the city, what we want you to do that work with is to think about land, about employment, and about technology.
On the one hand, you're saying that the institutions are the rules of the game or are the commonly understood norms that structure behavior. And then on the other hand, you're saying that the behavior then changes the institutions as people try to push the conventions a little bit.
And it was a very interesting case of the BWSSB does make enough money because they're sort of highly indebted and so on, but operationally they make enough money to recover their, so quote unquote quite efficient, etc., etc. But the poor people in a certain slum area could only share a connection. So when they did share a connection, the volume was so much that they were paying much more than the richest neighbor in the non-slum area was paying.
Who is the community? I think it's really important that we recognize that it's not a homogeneous group made up of huge differences of people.
There are several examples in other cities where women's self-help groups have been managing toilets. Trichy in Tamil Nadu, for example, where Gramalaya has done this very successfully.
Even activism, citizenship, engaging with issues, citizens' participation, all of these need to be historically contextualized.
SEWA is a trade union of women workers. Today SEWA is in 9 states and has 1.2 million, over 12 lakh members.
There is another aspect of running a city, and that is the governance aspect. And both the governance aspect and the technical planning and implementation aspect need to be part of a city management.
The fundamental problem with our cities in the industrial model is that we're taking resources out of the earth, we're using them, and then we're wasting them and polluting the earth system. The impact of that is that we're getting more intense rainfalls, we're getting higher temperatures, and therefore a lot of informal settlements in India and in many other countries are being severely affected by this.
Since the total carbon emission has to be 0, then this minus this is 0. The total population multiplied by the population requires certain services, right? So it's called service intensity. Now that services require a particular energy. So that is called energy intensity. And that energy produces certain carbon. That's called carbon intensity. Now both of it together generally called as technology.
This is the distribution of power. This graph is the same as this. There is a slight scaling issue, but this is the same height. And this thing which goes into these various sectors of the economy is produced like this: 86% coal, so much hydro, so much gas, so much petroleum.
We seem to limit most of our explorations and interpretations to the physical form of the city. Rarely do you see any kind of a discourse that examines the relationship of that city to its landscape, to the natural surroundings.
For the first time, I was actually able to put conceptualization into actual design, which I have never seen before or done before.
You talk about other new reforms that India has now, many new reforms that are in place.
You've mentioned that this opening up to the mobilization of some people who are, say, groups which are against the reform that we are proposing, say. But at the end of the day, if our reform is not able to contest the mobilization, then is the reform strong enough?
If you know who is going to oppose, don't give them too much time. Don't give them too much time to mobilize and bring your reform down.
I think what is so amazing is that actually, even though we're a huge team and very diverse, the reality is that we come to IIHS with the same passion and the same commitment, and that means that actually in the end it hasn't been difficult to team teach at all. We had to organize ourselves, of course you always have to organize yourself, but actually we haven't really contradicted each other. It's been very easy and it's been a great pleasure.
Groups of half a dozen, 6-7 people who will be presenting to you their ideas about this brief. So we have a very distinguished panel here. All of them are very engaged with Bangalore.
Our theme was employment and mobility.
We kind of figured out what is the most constraining resource which either makes it or breaks it.
This is a 1941 map which shows you have so many green spaces in the city. And this is 2000 where you can see the emerging urban fabrics. 2006 it is getting more denser. That means we are losing out green spaces.
A site is somewhere here, and this is the metro line which is passing near the site, which will carry most of the public transport.
I think the most important or the most critical problem in Bangalore is that how to reduce the use of private transport.
This is basically a resource network flow that we are trying to put in this site. We will not just have industries which are just locally, which is using local resources.
The way we have developed this is that the economy would be in such that it would be the high value add jobs of certain industries.
We had looked into the potential of land.
We had a lot of debates, but ultimately we came out as a group. So that was kind of a learning experience, how to match with the interest of different professions and finally come out with something which can be related to all.
One of the people teaching had a lot of experience in the field with people, and others had a lot of experience developing theory from their research. And I think a lot of times that worked well together.
There was no self-righteousness about the academic or the activist. I like that they were open to everything.
You actually don't feel that they are faculty, but they are people whom you are working along with, and you can go and talk to them freely. Although you know that they know a lot and it's a little intimidating, but that kind of dissolved.
I think the presentations have been excellent because they're informative, they've been done very well, and the people who are talking about it are very knowledgeable people.